Hi, everybody. I'm Jordan Greer, the owner of GT Planet, and I'm joined here by Andrew Evans, our editor in chief. And Andrew, I think to say the last few weeks of Gran Turismo news have been interesting would be a bit of an understatement.
Yeah,
You've been on the road a bit. We've had some big announcements. Of course, those big announcements tend to come while you are on the road, but that's another
yeah.
subject entirely. We got to start with the big news, I think, which is, of course, the Xiaomi announcement with Gran Turismo, their partnership with Gran Turismo. And you were there in London. You kind of got to see the event firsthand, the announcement firsthand. But what's your take on this?
Yeah, so I mean, it was something we kind of we got a little bit of a wind of a week or so back when Kazunori Yamauchi tweeted about he'd just been and driven a 1,500 horsepower car. And there's only a limited number of those that are around. I mean, obviously, there were a few guesses what people thought it might be, and the Xiaomi did kind of pop up as a couple of people's thoughts. And then, yes, so we can't really say it came out of the blue, but it certainly did surprise us a little bit that. I mean, the most notable thing is that Gran Turismo has never had a Chinese car of any kind in its entire history. So we're looking at, we're in the 27th, 28th year we're coming up on for GT7, and it's now got its first. Well, it will be having its first Chinese car. Well, we don't know when it's coming. Obviously, if Yamauchi has only very just recently driven it, it probably means that Polyphony Digital has only just been in a position to scan and capture it in all of its glory. But it's on its way, and it's pretty much a landmark moment.
Yeah, it is. I think it sort of makes sense with the rise of these Chinese manufacturers that we do have finally a Chinese manufacturer in the game. I think it also comes with a little bit of controversy because there is a lot of controversy around these Chinese companies, and I don't know. It feels like I'll say that I hope that Xiaomi is paying a lot of money for this because I feel like they have more to gain from this partnership necessarily than Gran Turismo does. It's sort of I don't think Xiaomi has a lot of pull in the United States, for example. They don't sell their mobile phones here, so it's a company that I've heard of. I know about it, but I know a lot of other people don't. So this is a big exposure for them, something that it's good for them in many ways. But for Gran Turismo, a brand that has worked with Michelin, Toyota, Mercedes Benz,
Mazda.
Nissan, Audi, like it's not in that tier of automotive brands. So I was kind of surprised to see this partnership, but it does kind of make sense because the Chinese are making a lot of waves in the world of the automotive industry.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen quite a few brands in the UK recently. Like, I think the one that's making the biggest strides at the moment and getting most of the headlines is BYD, or BRD as they're supposed to be pronounced. And they are one of the world's biggest manufacturers of batteries. They actually make more batteries than Tesla does, or Tesla with its partnerships. Similarly, Xiaomi actually, well, as you say, probably best known as a technology company for its mobile phones. It's the second largest producer of mobile phones in the world after Samsung. And in fact, the automotive arm of Xiaomi only came about because there was an executive order from the outgoing president in 2021 effectively blacklisting Xiaomi in the US, so people couldn't invest in the company even. And that kind of it prompted the CEO to have a bit of a think, as he's got 40,000 employees making tech, and one of the world's largest markets is shut to him. What can he do? And he basically came up with the idea of making cars. So we're talking about a car company that's 4 years old tops. And we've got plenty of them in the UK. I mean, one of our biggest, well, formerly biggest, one of our best regarded brands, MG, is now under Chinese ownership, or has been for quite a while. And we have seen other Chinese brands make their way into other racing games, like Forza Horizon has actually the MGs. They've got the Geely, the Yang Geely owned cars like Zeekr and Lincoln Co. and Polestar. Haven't seen BYD anywhere yet. They've got Xiaomi, which had the one of the records for EV cars around the Nürburgring. I mean, it's one of those things that it's a rapidly increasing market, and it's drawing some parallels to what we saw with the Korean brands maybe 20 years ago, and even the Japanese brands 60, 70 years ago as well. In Xiaomi's there is some controversy behind Xiaomi as well, because the car that we're going to be looking at, the car that's coming, or the car that we know that's coming, is the SU7 Ultra, which is the 1,525 horsepower tri-motor electric sedan, which has literally just set the Nürburgring lap record for EVs and for four doors in production spec. Actually, the SU7 itself comes in several different grades, so the Ultra is the top spec. You can get one with 290 something horsepower, which is just a single motor. There's a dual motor, and there's been a couple of relatively high profile crashes. I mean, there was one where a student, I think it was a student, crashed his SU7 Max with, I think he was 3 up at the time, and there was some serious injuries in that. And there's been lots of people looking at, it's got the tiniest brake pads you can possibly imagine on the front. But then again, it's an electric car. A lot of its braking comes from the brake regeneration. Hopefully, the SU7 Ultra has a bit more braking power, which obviously we've seen it, hucking around the Nürburgring in a ridiculous time, beating the Porsche Taycan by a good few seconds. So obviously, it's going to have some decent stopping power as well as some decent motion. And I think Yamauchi said it corners at a ludicrous lateral G of something like 1.6 G, which is crazy on road tires. So I mean, it's one of those really quite unusual things. I mean, they don't have much heritage. It's a 4-year-old company, but they are really piling in on the stuff like the Nürburgring lap. They're now actually sponsoring they're a premium partner of the Nürburgring. So they have their advertising all around the ring. They've actually renamed one of the corners on the GP circuit. They're now part of the industry pool, which tests there. So they have the industry test days. So, I mean, they're really going hard in on the Xiaomi Auto side of things. And one of the things that Yamauchi also pointed out was that everything across Xiaomi, no matter what it is, whether it's a television or a watch or a car or a phone, all runs on this same operating system, which I think is something that's more in your ballpark. But they managed to unify everything under this same technology.
Yeah, that's true. We have a saying in software where you have software that runs on multiple platforms, and that is write once. You write the code once. You write once, suck everywhere. So I don't know that that's something that I really want necessarily involved in my car. But I think it's. I don't know. I love competition. I love free markets. I love new companies coming out, challenging the old guard and that sort of thing. But, I also have a lot of conflicted feelings with the Chinese government and their potential associations with that. And, in terms of data sharing with the Chinese government, intellectual property, human rights, these are all things which we never usually talk about with a Gran Turismo partner, because the Gran Turismo brand is so apolitical. I mean, there's nothing political about it. And they've done a really good job of managing that over the history of Gran Turismo. But now, there are these aspects. Who knows what could happen with Xiaomi in, a couple of years, they could come out and there is some type of something about their cars that's not good, or there's some type of controversy with the government. And, so it comes with a risk. But I think the other thing, and we've talked about this before on here, is the need for the Gran Turismo World Series to have that outside funding from different partners, because these are really expensive events. It costs a lot to put these things on. And I don't think that they can necessarily show a direct correlation between these events and game sales. So it kind of needs to be self-sustaining. And, if you can get a company like Xiaomi to come write a big check, then, if it allows us to keep going to these events and keep this World Series sustainable, I guess it's a good thing.
Yeah, and we're going to get I know I'm going to say the three words that people really don't like. We're going to get a Vision Gran Turismo out of the collaboration as well. There's potential that we've actually already seen this. So there was a car that was I don't really want to say leaked, but there was a car that was posted, which was a design by a student at the China Academy of Arts, which had the word Vision GT on it, although it wasn't in the official word mark. But again, we've seen that before. The Subaru Vision GT, the Visiv, that has the unofficial Vision GT on it as well. And he actually designed two. So there was a road car and a race car with a big wing, and the car we've seen under the cover has a big wing. So there's a possibility we've actually already seen this. But we'll act surprised when the covers are pulled off.
Yeah, I was also surprised, although this is certainly not unprecedented by Polyphony standards. But we had the announcement, and there's no car. I feel like that's another sort of a sort of a letdown, because when you get these announcements of partnerships and they're accompanied by a car or a Vision GT car, part of the excitement, part of the fun is then immediately getting to try it in the game. So now we've had this announcement. When the car eventually comes, it's going to kind of be like old news. People are like, oh yeah, I remember back in June, that was, and it could be, it could be
back in
it could
June,
be the end of the year,
2025.
Yeah,
we don't know when it's
oh yeah, remember, like I can see the article now.
Yeah.
I can see, it'd be like back, like you said, back in 2025, this partnership with Xiaomi was announced, and here it is, and people are gonna be like, oh yeah, I remember that. So, it's too bad that that the car is not available, with the Vision GT counterpart. But I guess they wanted to get ahead of the news. I'm assuming they wanted to get it out as part of the start of the Gran Turismo World Series with the first event in 2025. So that all makes sense and stuff. But yeah, I'm curious to drive it from a gaming standpoint, from the standpoint of Gran Turismo 7. I don't think EVs drive particularly well in the game. I like driving EVs myself in real life. I think they're really interesting. I don't have anything against EVs, but every time I drive one in game, I'm not particularly thrilled. So I can understand people who are disappointed with this announcement from that standpoint.
Yeah, I mean, you have an awful lot of the EVs in GT7 are of the same. I mean, the Vision GTs particularly, well, amongst them, but they're of this kind of a similar sort of 4-figure horsepower and several minutes notice for braking style. I mean, again, obviously the Xiaomi has proven itself around the Nürburgring that it can stop as well as it can go. It's one of those we're going to have to wait and see. EVs also, I mean, not. There's like 15 or so of like pure EVs in the game. They're not perhaps as integrated as well in the career as they could be, or as in the single player in general. I mean, there are exceptions. We see if you drive the Deep Forest Endurance in the Human Comedy books, you'll see the Porsche Taycan doing an over the top excellent job in that. It's one of these cases where the car is only as good as its integration.
That's a good way to put it. Well, moving on, we need to talk about London. Of course, you were there. This was the first Gran Turismo event in the UK since the Copper Box, which is actually where we first had the opportunity to meet in person. And that was I had the honor of being one of the hosts, one of the commentators for that event. And it was. I really wish I could have been there. I had terrible FOMO that entire weekend. I was like, oh, I wanted to be there so bad. But
now you know
got
how
to be
I felt
there.
about Amsterdam last year.
Yes, exactly,
Really
exactly.
I love the finals. I mean, I love all of the ends, but the finals are just always something extra.
Yeah, they are. They are. But so how was this one? What was it like on the ground? What was the atmosphere like? How was it?
Yes, I mean, this was my first experience of a single day event. So all the ones I've done previously, I didn't attend any of the ones last year. and I think my last one was the Barcelona final, which was 2023. So this is my first one-day one, and it's unusual for me having everything kind of just stuffed into the very tight schedule, because I mean, obviously the 2-day events, or the 3-day events as they used to be, there used to be an awful lot of downtime, which was good because it meant I could write stuff between each set of days, and there was obviously big gaps, because the racers need their rest as well. So it was an experience for me to have my first single day event, and it did mean that obviously some of the things that I like doing at the other ones, like there was no pro-am, which I do have mixed emotions about pro-ams. But there's no time for the pro-am. I mean, so there wasn't really that much time for interviews either. I would have loved to have catch up with some of the drivers before and after, but I mean after particularly. But they seemed a little bit more pressed for time, and kind of I think they only really spoke to the Polyphony Digital staff for their official channels. So there wasn't quite as much time as I would like on that side of things. But in terms of the atmosphere, I mean, you can't really argue. The British crowd were the typical British crowd, holding up their little signs saying "fixed penalty system." But it was good fun, and I got to meet a lot of people. I mean, some again, but I wouldn't normally meet an awful lot of forum members because I mean, we like racing games. We don't get out of the house that much, and I know I don't. So I did get to meet quite a few faces to put to real names and to usernames, which I would previously have had the opportunity to do. And yeah, it was all very friendly, and the crowds looking at the cars that were all parked outside, and obviously everyone's swooning over the Mazda CX-30. I mean, there was a purple Valkyrie there as well, but who cares? CX-30. Yeah. And yeah, I mean, I actually got to catch up with a lot of people from GT Academy days as well, because I mean, we always talk about this Gran Turismo family. It hasn't just started with the World Series. They used to have these GT Academy events at Silverstone every year. And, I've had the fortune to go to quite a few of them, obviously not as a competitor because, no. But a lot of the old staff who used to be part of Polyphony Digital, of Sony, of the promotion firm, which is Jardine, an awful lot of them were back on the scene, and there's a few of them who are now involved again with Gran Turismo. So it was great to catch up with them, and obviously all the various members. I mean, I had somebody come up to me because I did one of my very rare online race series, and I did with them last year. So it was good to. I mean, obviously I've heard their voices before because got the old headsets. So it was nice to get to kind of meet them in person and say hi. And it was a properly enjoyable affair. And we got to have a little tour of the television centre as well, the media that were there, which is actually part of the fun, that they, rather than being just a venue and they bring all their own equipment in, this is a television studio. So they got to basically hook into the television equipment. I mean, it's a 4K equipped studio. It was all upgraded when the BBC Studio Works moved in 5, 6, 7 years ago. So it was one of the more unusual venues we've been in, that it's actually designed for that exact sort of thing, rather than just being a place where they could stick all the equipment in and get all the people in. So it was a very different experience for me.
Yeah, that's interesting, man. You're making me wish I was there even more.
Yeah, that doesn't help. The one strange thing, of course, is there's no British competitors this year.
Yeah.
It would have been nice to have some British people who'd qualified for either of the events. I know there's an Irish chap, and we do like to include Ireland as part of the British Isles, but he won't be racing until Berlin, because he's in the Manufacturers Series. So he's part of the EMEA group for the Manufacturers Series. But it would have been nice, like in Barcelona we had in 2023, there was an awful lot of Spanish competitors there. There was the whole Team Spain thing, and the crowd was living it. I think if we'd have had a British, and obviously it's something that Polyphony Digital can't control. They've had this planned for, a year, and they've got 6 rounds to qualify in, and it was just the case that we didn't get a British competitor, and it would have, I think, added to everything.
Yeah, and that's always surprised me. I mean, people talk about this, at the events and stuff. I talk to the Brits and stuff, and they're like, "Yeah, we need more British people here." At the pointy end of the field. And it's surprising because there's such a huge following in the UK for Gran Turismo, such huge support for sim racing. And there's so many talented drivers, like real world drivers, who are British, yet there doesn't seem to be a lot of crossover. I mean, there's a lot of great Gran Turismo drivers from the UK. Don't get me wrong, but I mean, at that very, 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 very high level, you just don't see a lot, and that's really too bad. I don't know why that is.
I mean, we do have some names that are quite high up quite often. I mean, I think in Nations, I mean, this year's Nations, obviously the qualification criteria really shrank down because there was only 12 spots and 3 of them went to the top 3 from last year. So it was I mean, North America and Asia and Oceania suffered really badly that you had 1 spot each. So obviously you got the Canadian Samuel Cardinal. You know, he could have qualified previously, but too young. So obviously he's now in his first ones. We've had I think it was Takuma Sasaki who qualified from Asia, and obviously he's got Takuma Miyazono alongside him as the reigning champ, and Guy Barbara from Oceania. So I think we obviously, you know, Europeans, we were quite blessed that we had 4 additional spots, as well as Kilian and Jose Serrano, who qualified as part of the top 3 from last year. And we did have some Brits who were quite high up there, top 10. I think there was one in 6th. So it's kind of like nearly there. But it would have just been, it would have added a little bit of cherry on the cake to have a British driver there for the crowd to support. It's just one of those things that hasn't actually really happened recently. I don't think we've had a Nations finalist for a while. I mean, I could think of Sarathan Seelan, who was in the Toyota GR, and obviously Mohamed Bidema, who was did that excellent win for Ferrari in last year's manufacturers. But it's just the case that we've not had a Nations competitor for a while, and it is odd because, you know, there are so many really good like British esports drivers across the spectrum of esports, not just Gran Turismo, but you know, in other racing esports as well. There's plenty of them. I mean, we've got a couple of chaps who qualified for the Ferrari. Some of the guys at the Ferrari esports series, some of the guys at the top end of the various, you know, GT World Challenge. We've got chaps like James Baldwin, although obviously he's very busy trying to find more real world drives. So it's you know, it's one of those things. It would have been nice, but you know, we cheer on whoever we cheer on.
Yeah, that's one thing that I really liked about the old format of the World Tour, where we had the regional finals, and you know that of course this is like a long time ago now, but you know that I really like that format where you sort of had the regions, you had the drivers, you had more drivers from particular regions that got to go to these events and experience them in a somewhat local setting. I mean, it's relatively local compared to flying all the way around the world, but you know, I really liked that because you had the sense of, you know, okay, these are the best drivers in the Americas. These are the best drivers in Europe. These are the best drivers in Asia. And you would go to that event and you would watch them, or you'd watch the event online, and it's like, wow, you know, he's really quick. You know, they're really, really quick. Oh man, I can't wait to see what these drivers from Europe, how they compete with the drivers from the Americas and from Asia and stuff. And so that made the world finals of the World Tour really exciting. And I think it also allowed a better cross-section of drivers to participate. And, you know, they would have had more room, for example, if this London event had only been limited to Europeans, would have had more room for some UK qualifiers, which would have added another element to the event. So I'd like to see them return to that format. I think that would be great. But they seem to be pretty committed to this new International World Series. They've changed the name.
I guess it's kind of one of those meetings where, you know, as you were saying earlier on about the expense of putting all of these events on, but also continuity. So we have the same 12 drivers who we're going to watch across the Nations Cup in all 4 rounds. We have the same 12 brands we're going to watch across all. I mean, not the same drivers in the manufacturers because it's a team event, but the same 12 brands we're going to see all the way across. And then we're going to see the 3 guys who are in the manufacturers. We're going to see all of them in the finals. So it's kind of that. You find someone to get behind and support them across the season, which as you would in other events. But yeah, no, again, personally, I would like to see a much, much bigger online season than we've been having. I mean, 2019, there were 40 races. The last 2 seasons have been 6 in each of the 2 championships. So I would like to see more. Yeah. More of the online qualifying chances, but I mean, yeah, it's with the current format, it's going to be here are the faces, find one to follow, and follow them all the way through.
Yeah, it's always finding that compromise between continuity and casting a wide net and more participation. Yeah, that's just the way it is. Well, hopefully I'll get to go to the Los Angeles event. I don't plan on going to Berlin, but yeah, it's interesting. There's like, the Gran Turismo family, which we talk about.
Yeah.
There's also like regional sections of the Gran Turismo family, and so a lot of I'm incredibly lucky because I've been to so many Gran Turismo events, but the U.S. market is so different as well. There's a lot of people that work for PlayStation and Sony here in North America that I know, and they never come to or they rarely come to the international events. Maybe it's some of the World Finals or Gran Turismo launch events. They might come, but even then, it's not all of them. But, I go to an event here in the U.S. and I'm like, hey, how you doing? And I haven't seen you in a long time because I only get to see them at these U.S. events. And then I've been to the U.K. events before. Obviously, I was at the Copper Box, and it's another group of people. And then you go to Asia, and you go to Japan or Sydney, Australia, and then that's yet another group of people that I don't see as much. But there's all these little subsets, and then of course there's some people that go to all of them, and yeah, it's just really interesting. So I'm looking forward to the Los Angeles event. Glad to have it back in the U.S. again. I'm really looking forward to that. And Los Angeles is always a good time. And as I put in the article for the ticket sales, Los Angeles has a lot of history with Gran Turismo. Yeah. So a lot of good memories there. I have a lot of great memories in LA with the Gran Turismo team and PlayStation people and stuff. So looking forward to that. That'll be good. They'll be here before we know it. So moving on, we need to talk about Full Force with Fanatec. So that's something we've been harping on for a long time. Of course, had the Gran Turismo DD Extreme wheel, which I reviewed last year, and it has been a very long time. And Full Force, of course, the high frequency effects that were supposed to be integrated with Gran Turismo 7. When we first saw that wheel in Barcelona, we were talking about that. You were with me, and we had the chance to try the wheel out before. Yeah, it was like, that this Full Force is coming to Gran Turismo. It's going to be a big deal. And then, we've waited and waited and waited. Of course, Fanatec had a couple of things going on behind the scenes.
One or two, yeah.
Yeah, they had a few things that kept them busy. So I'm sure that's probably been a factor. But the good news is it's coming to iRacing in their current season, which is released, I think, today, maybe. So I need to double check on that release date. But it's a good sign. Hopefully that means things are progressing on Polyphony Digital's side, and maybe we'll get Full Force soon. We'll see.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously something that you know far more about than I do because I don't have any Fanatec equipment. The only time I use the Fanatec is how you're supposed to say it. Everyone always says Fanatec. It's Fanatec. The only time I ever use it is obviously at the GT World Series events. And yeah, we tried that wheel out in Barcelona. Like, we can't talk about it. No, it's not happening. We can't see the wheel. I think was it March that you were allowed to talk about it at long last.
Yeah,
and you could talk about the rig that the wheel was mounted to, but not And then it was Full Force is on the way, and this and that and the other, and then it's been getting like that. It's been 84 years meme, and obviously the official Gran Turismo wheel, and it's coming to Gran Turismo. It's coming to Gran Turismo, and it's in iRacing. So we should take it as a positive sign that it is, it's no longer this mythical, almost vaporware level thing, and it's starting to make its way into, well, I was just going to say the real world. It's starting to make its way into gaming, properly and public releases. So we might hopefully at some point before we're too old actually see Full Force in Gran Turismo.
Yeah, we are. I mean, I think that the fact that iRacing, at least one game is going to have it now, that does put pressure on the other developers because, it's like, well, they've got it. Why don't we? Because our name is on it. And Gran Turismo, the name is literally on the wheel rim for the flagship bundle that the Club Sport DD plus wheelbase is included in. So yeah, but we need to get that. We need to get that out. I'm really looking forward to that day. That'll be a great thing, because I do love the higher frequency vibrations. I've talked about it at length on here. So yeah, looking forward to that. And there's a lot of games that Full Force is supposed to support. So hopefully that'll be moving forward. Speaking of other games, we have some news. Really kind of came out of nowhere. I think it sort of took a lot of people, took us in particular off guard. We've got another Forza game coming next year, don't we?
Yeah. Which Forza game? Nobody knows. So, I mean, we were sort of tuning into the Xbox Game Showcase thinking, it might show something about Forza Horizon 6. Because they've been sort of teasing it, and Forza Horizon 5 has sort of reached a point where it's not really going to be updated in quite the same manner it was before. And obviously now it's on PlayStation 5 as well, which was something that's just, So, we were kind of thinking, there might be something Forza Horizon 6 related, and then it just kind of went on, and it went on, and it went on, and there wasn't even anything car related in it. And then at the end, Phil Spencer there saying, we're going to be celebrating Xbox's 25th anniversary next year, and we're going to be seeing a new Fable and a new Forza, and a new Forza. Can you not be more specific than a new Forza? So it's likely to be Forza Horizon 6. It's the one that makes the most sense, obviously, because as we were saying, Horizon 5 has kind of reached that point where it's kind of at the end now of all things. Forza Motorsport doesn't make that much sense. I mean, we are coming up on 3 years now for Forza Motorsport. Or we will be next year. So, the games in the past only used to survive 2 years. So there's a possibility he could be talking about a new Forza Motorsport. I mean, there's a possibility he could be talking about a new Forza Street, I don't know. Or some fourth game that we've never heard of before. But, and he doubled down on it as well. Doubled down on it. New Forza, he said a second time.
Yeah, I think the Horizon, and we've talked about this before, I know, but Horizon has been so successful, and it feels like Motorsport, even though they say it hasn't, it feels like it's sort of been put on the back burner. Not just put on the back burner, but it's not as prominent as it once was. I don't think the Forza Horizon clearly has taken the throne. That's what most people think about when you mention the word Forza. Like if you go out on the street and then ask somebody if they've played Forza, they're going to be like, yeah, oh yeah, and then they'll be talking about Forza Horizon. That's just something I've noticed, because people talk to me about things, and I've mentioned that GT Planet and racing games, and I have this website and stuff, and if they're really casual, they'll be like, oh yeah, like Forza, and I'm like, oh yeah, which Forza do you play? And they're like, oh yeah, and I can figure out it's Forza Horizon. It's not Motorsport. So it's interesting, but I could actually see them. I'm just thinking outside of the box here. I don't have any inside information, but what if they actually combined it into a game, and made it Forza Horizon that also has Motorsport built into it? What if we didn't necessarily have these two different types of games anymore? I could see them doing something like that from a development perspective, from a branding perspective. Why not? Why not do that and sell one big game to a whole bunch of people and integrate all of the best parts into that title, and have you drive from track to track and using the Forza Horizon environment, but also having that structure and that motorsport angle of the tracks when you actually get there. I could see them doing something like that. That might be why he said a new Forza game and didn't say anything in particular.
That may have been terrifying proposition. That actually scares me. That sort of reminds me a little bit of what Assetto Corsa Evo is trying with the whole Nürburgring Eifel open map. But obviously, that would only be to the Nürburgring rather than driving to and from various circuits. I can imagine that happening. I don't even want to try reviewing that game. Most review codes come over and I get a day and a half maybe with it.
Yeah. Oh yeah, you can knock that out. No problem.
Yeah.
No problem. Yeah. Until you're a gaming journalist when you think about games in terms of how difficult the review is going to be.
Yeah. That terrifies me.
Yeah. Just an idea, but I agree with you. I think it'll be a new Horizon game, if anything. It's most likely it's going to be a Horizon game.
Yeah.
And
I know, because everyone's expecting it's going to be set in Japan, but we don't know that either yet.
No, we don't. But I was certainly impressed with Forza Horizon on PlayStation.
Yeah.
Thought the game played really well. I've had a lot of fun with it. So I think it kind of makes sense. They can get that game out, get over a lot of the bugs, on PlayStation platform. I'm sure that the game runs well. I'm not saying it's buggy, but I'm sure that from a development standpoint, they've found things that they need to work on. But that'd be great. It's been a great way to get their feet wet in terms of that cross console multi-platform development structure. And they can sell that for a year, get a lot more revenue out of it, and then come out with a new one. So that makes perfect sense as well. But hopefully next year, I think, is shaping up to be quite an interesting one for racing game fans.
Yeah.
So,
and we've got all sorts of stuff coming along. Let's ignore the elephant in the room of Grand Theft Auto 6, which is going to suck up an awful lot of time, money, from everybody, and everyone's going to have to plan their release dates around that. But there's an awful lot of proper. GTA. I like GTA 6. I do an awful lot of racing in it. GTA. I like GTA. I do an awful lot of racing in it. So GTA 6 obviously is going to be an awful lot of time on the road, but there's a lot of proper racing games that are, going to have to be coming either side of it. I mean, not just if this next Forza comes out in 26 like it's promised, but we've got all sorts of extra titles, and some which like Rennsport. Coming out on PC, coming out on console soon as well. I think September it's supposed to be coming out on console. Obviously, I saw some other stuff down at the NACON event in May, and we've got Project Motor Racing that's on its way. So 26 is looking to be an exciting time.
Yeah, it'll be a big year for Assetto Corsa Evo as well. And then there's that other franchise, Gran Turismo. Is that
that a new one?
Have you heard of that one?
No, I thought
Yeah. Well, who knows what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So, anyway, I think we'll wrap it up there. Good to see you, Andrew. I'm glad you had a great time in London. I wish I was there next time.
Fingers crossed they'll invite us both to the World Finals in Fukuoka.
Yes.
Fingers crossed.
Oh, yes. That'll be
I've never been to Japan. You've been to like Polyphony Digital and you've been to the Sydney event. I've never been any further east than Cyprus. So I've only been outside of Europe twice, and they were both to the US.
Yeah, hopefully we can get you there for sure. Hope so. All right, till next time. Thanks for watching, guys.